Welcome to Cooperville.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cooperville Live. A very happy Tuesday evening to you. Special edition Tuesday. Big day today. Big day for my buddy Carlos, which means it's a big day for everybody. Thank you for tuning in and being a part of the show today. You may notice we switched some cameras around a little bit today. I did a little adjustment here in the studio, but it's okay. My dude's still here. See? Come on. Happy Halloween. What do we? We named him last week. I think it's Jim. Hey, it's Jim. Glad to see you all. Hope you had a great day today. C-Dubs, what's up? Malaysia in the house. How are things in Malaysia? Good? Good. Don't forget, wherever you're watching, if you are on our Facebook page, if you are on Instagram, if you are on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, jump in the comments. Join along in the conversation. CJ Ricard is going to be on with us in just moments. Keyboard and headset just arrived. Big day. Time for world domination. C-Dubs, time for world domination. Let's check in with our fine sponsors. Okay. Cooperville Clothing, new drop coming up on Friday. Be prepared for that. But, of course, I hate to say it because I never like to not give due credit to the approaching holiday. Like, obviously, I have a fake skeleton next to me. I want to give Halloween its due. I love Thanksgiving. It's my jam. I do all the traditional things. So I want to give focus to where it is. But I understand there's a percentage of Americans that are crazy enough to have their Christmas shopping started already. I am not one of them. But if you are and you know somebody who wants to wear some really rad gear, CoopervilleClothing.com will have holiday sales coming up. Joe's in the house. What's up, dude? Oh, my camera's over here. There it is. So if you know somebody who likes to dress impeccably awesome, check out our entire line. Men's stuff, women's stuff, hats, stickers, accessories, all of the things, CoopervilleClothing.com. Captain Coop's Beard Company, we have big things coming up as we get closer and closer to Black Friday and the holiday season of shopping for your bearded brethren on your Christmas holiday shopping list. We're going to have some cool stuff. Actually, we'll even have stuff for the ladies. Multi-purpose. We're filling the circle. We had this much of the pie, and we're trying to expand to more. But in the meantime, if you need beard stuff, CaptainCoops.com. We are sold out of Captain's Quarters Beard Oil and Beard Balm. So you're going to have to adjust your life accordingly. But you can do that at CaptainCoops.com. There we go. Back onto the main screen. Joe, what's up? Good to see you, buddy. How are you? Hope you had a great weekend. We didn't do a show yesterday. We saved it for today because we have a big one. Again, wherever you're watching, thank you. Make sure you subscribe, like the page, hit the notification bell, all of your things that you hear on every single live stream show. Do all of those things for us. We really appreciate it. So thank you all. And chime in the comments if you have questions for myself or for CJ, Carlos, whatever you want to call him, my dude. Punch those into the comments here as well, wherever you're at, and we will get to those as well. No sound on the Twitch. Bummer. We have sound here. No, so that's good. Check over on the tube, man. Check the tube. See if that works. We'll make it work. So I met with Carlos on Friday, and we were trying to figure out when we had him on last, and I think it was like almost 3 years ago. We had Carlos on. We started talking about his life story. It was scheduled as an hour show and ended up being like 3.5. So we had a lot to talk about. And I'm so excited because today his book came out. It is called The Resurrection Plant. Super excited for him. I'm going to bring him in to the program. CJ, Carlos, my man.
What's up, boss?
How you doing, my friend?
Just trying to not be so bright here. Let me just give me 1 second. I got to adjust this lighting if you don't mind.
The only person that's not bright here is me.
I look like Ghost.
Like Patrick Swayze?
Yeah, literally.
Well,
oh man,
things didn't work out well for for Swayze. But
Yeah, poor Swayze. He did get Dirty Dancing, don't forget.
he did. I did read. For some reason, I end up falling into that trap. Like Netflix will put on like the movies that made us, and they had on like Dirty Dancing. And they talked about how Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze really did not like each other, yet obviously they made movie magic. So, but you, my friend, this day is about you. Congratulations. The Resurrection Plan is out. A long time coming. How are you feeling about today?
I'm feeling like I just had another baby.
That'd be four.
That'd be four. Yes, the Resurrection Plan. Though it's a plan, it's my baby.
That's awesome, man. I know this was, and we'll talk about a lot of things today on the show. But this has been outside of the legitimate life experiences that you talk about in the book and that we talked about on the podcast that we had, John, when this was really just you putting words down. This has been such a process and such a journey. And when you and I met on Friday, we kind of talked about those things because people have misconceptions and misnomers about whether it's wanting to be an author or wanting to accomplish something in life that you just kind of, you think it and then magically it appears. And there's no obstacles. There's no challenges. It's, I want to be a published author. I wrote a book and now it's a top 10 bestseller. But you understand that this was a process and probably more educational than you thought it was going to be when you started.
Yeah, I mean, and let's not forget that it's a selfless process. No one's paying you to do it either. I mean, unless you're J.K. Rowling, and even she tried 13 times and was denied 13 times. So, and that is amongst having to work, having to be a dad, having to be a partner, having to do the lawn, just live life, right?
Yeah, and it's amazing when you have an inner drive to accomplish something. And you understand that all of those other pieces, all of those other cogs need to be fulfilled. Being a dad, and you added one more recently, so it's that's a process as well in the midst of all of this. What was it? Because when we first talked on this show, we talked about your journey, from being the immigrant kid from Puerto Rico to the rough streets of Massachusetts, gangs, prison, all of the trials and tribulations of that. And this culmination of being able to tell that story and about being able to utilize the things that you learned in those not so good times, the tumultuous times.
Correct.
But still being able to manage all of the other stuff that's going on. Like what kept you driven to get to this point where we're talking about, hey, today is the day that the book has been unleashed on the world?
To put it in a nutshell, it's having failed so many times, tell you the truth. It's having sucked a lot and have a lot of disappointment. I mean, it's like the first time you got your heart broken. It never hurts as bad as the first time you get your heart broken. So it's just the way it is. And after it happens so many times, you start learning a few things. You start realizing that, there's no white horse coming, so no one's going to save you. You got to pick yourself up. And then you have to make an assessment. Maturity has a lot to do with how quick you learn and stuff, but you have to make an assessment. Am I going to keep doing the same crap I'm doing, or am I going to maybe strategize a little different and then still go back at it, but knowing that, hey, I failed. So I guess this is as low as I can get because I didn't achieve the goal. And now I have to understand that I might fail again, but I know what it feels like. So let me just keep going and going and going. And you stumble a few times, you learn a few tricks along the way.
you learn how to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps and dust yourself off. A lot of cliches that go along with that. But to put this book together, and again, it is a book about your story, about your trials and tribulations, but yet there is purpose to this. This really is about being able to take the experiences that you had and we even chatted about this a little bit, as directly unrelatable as they are to like a person like me. Like
sure,
Wisconsin kid, immigrant on the East Coast, but still being able to hear your story, as I have several times, and find that relatability point. Like, man, I get that low point. I understand it. It may not be contextually the same, but we both experience these things, and being able to utilize those traumas in childhood or even in adolescence or even as you get into your 20s. For some of us, it took until, maybe there was some 30s in there where we made some mistakes. So we're like, I need to get my stuff figured out. But this book has a lot of lessons in it that you have found an amazing way to put into almost a guide for those who can utilize that to go, I can't always look back to my past pains and my past hurts and use them as a fallback. Here are ways for me to be able to use these as a fuel, as a gasoline, to be able to move myself forward into whatever I want to achieve.
I mean, listen, you only have to look at the people that we admire, the people that we look up to, the role models, to have an understanding as to what it takes to be great, be successful. And listen, you don't, not just financially, you be a successful partner, be a successful father, mother, just be a successful person in life. Steve Jobs was adopted. I mean, he was given up at birth, and we all know what he did. Oprah Winfrey at 13 was molested by her uncle, a family friend, and her cousin. Pregnant at 14, lost the baby, and moved, I think, even believe it or not, moved to Milwaukee for a little bit. So Oprah Winfrey. You have Jack Ma, who's the richest man in China, the owner of Alibaba. He applied to Harvard 10 times, was denied 10 times. When KFC got to China, 25 people applied for the job. 24 got hired. He was the only one that didn't get hired. So this is the richest guy in China we're talking about here. So, you have to keep in mind is that if it wasn't for those adversities, if it wasn't for that pain, if that pain wasn't felt, we'd never have any reason to reflect. I mean, we'd never have any reason to look in the mirror and question ourselves, look at our past and decide that, if I let that past be the pain that's going to anchor for the rest of my life, then at that point, I'm going to be defined by that, which the worst part about it is then I'm going to spread that to my children. It's like the family tree. It just keeps growing and growing and growing. So unless you break, like I said before, my grandmother has an old saying. She's 90 years old, by the way. She says, you can't straighten out a crooked stick. And it's just, there's no other way around it, right? You could rectify it eventually, but once the stick grows a certain way, it's going to take a long time for that thing to get upright again. So it's just the same process. It's being able to recognize these things and not have your pain literally start defining little bits of who you're going to become. So when you look back, you don't say, damn, what the hell happened to me,
I think that's a great and something that I really just kind of put together while you were saying it is how much of an impact the way we behave, the way we act, the way we kind of carry ourselves, go through the course of our day, the goals that we have, the ambition that we carry, like how much of that really does, get shed off on to our children. And because I think there's this kind of this misnomer that, well, they'll go, everybody has their own thing. They'll go off and they'll do great things. So they'll find themselves in a position where they can do what they want to do. Hey, it wasn't something that I could accomplish, but I'm sure that they will. But when you mention that, I mean, your grandmother's stick analogy, I think is so spot on, because as you go through life and as you raise children and they kind of follow along, maybe unbeknownst to them, but just through the course of nature, they will follow into the path that you have yourself on, because they live under your roof. They go through the same struggles that you go through. And it does take until they are the generation, or they are the ones that make that understanding, that connection, to utilize the experience they had to turn their stick back upright and to find their trajectory in an upward direction. But how much further ahead we could put our children if we were just a little more focused on moving ourselves up, not dwelling on the pain in the past, but using it as a way to move up. But I think that was, but I think your grandmother's words put it into perspective. Like, oh yeah,
wise woman.
Like, he's not just going to go off and go to MIT without a little bit of, encouragement from his parental units. But when you have life experiences like you have, like you have had, which are outlined in the book, and you have, at what point? I know we talked about this, but again, we couldn't decide if it was 2.5 or 3.5 years ago when we had you on the show.
Right.
What was rock bottom for you? Because I think rock bottom can be a real fluid situation for people. Like, the Packers lost. This is rock bottom. Or, I didn't. I bought a lottery ticket and I didn't win it. This is rock bottom. But to actually physically, with all of your being, be at rock bottom. I know you had that point in your life, but then again, the trajectory kicked back up. What was that moment for you when you were at the lowest and it's risen since then?
Here's the dichotomy about rock bottom. You don't know you're there sometimes. I like to use the analogy like someone who falls in a 6-foot hole, a 6-foot pit.
Right.
You made a mistake, you fell, but you have all these other, emotional blockages or beliefs or whatever it may be that lies to you and says, oh yeah, you made a mistake, but your pride is not going to let you own up to it. Or your status or your view on what rock bottom really is doesn't make you recognize that you're at rock bottom. So what a lot of people do is they make that 6-foot grave a nice, comfortable place to live in. And they make a little bed here. They make it cozy there. Meanwhile, the rest of us are walking around and looking down and saying, what the hell is this guy doing?
Right.
Like he's literally he fell, and people try to throw in a rope, a ladder, try to help, but all these preconceived ideas or notions and these lies that you tell yourself, I don't need it. I'm fine. I got this. I'll survive. Listen, I can, all the memes, all the one-liners, no pain, no gain. Fine. We could use all those, but dude, you're at rock bottom. You need a hand. So after a while, I realized, okay, my ultimate rock bottom, the one that shifted my perspective on life completely, was in 2009. The incident took place Valentine's Day of 2009. And from then I ended up going to prison. It wasn't the first time, mind you, but I was 25. I had a career. It was at its end. And I was selling some weed just to get by. I knew taxes was come. Actually, I had gotten my tax money. I had like $200 in my pocket out of my return. I was already headed down, a slippery slope. So I realized I lost everything. I have nothing to my name. My apartment was literally you're in jail. So you can't pay rent, you can't work, you can't do anything.
Right.
So after doing that so many times and sitting back and like I put in my book, there's this quote, I'm going to paraphrase, but you judge everyone when you're at a low place because when your standards are so low, you want to be the one-eyed man in the land of the blind, right? So you try to put people around you that are doing worse than you. And when you realize that you're so low, the 5 pages of grief, right? Denial, bartering, rage, all that stuff, right? So you go in that state of mind. And when all your cards are gone and everything is out the way, you start looking at yourself and saying, okay, I am no different than this prisoner. I am no different than the guy who got caught with crack. I'm not different with the guy who beat his wife. I'm no different than any of these guys because we're all in the same boat.
Right.
I may be smart. I may be, whatever crap you tell yourself that you're better than, all that goes out the window. But the crazy part about it was the freest I ever was. Being in prison, I had no responsibilities.
Right.
I had nothing. I had to wake up every day, 3 meals a day. And that's when I, like in the book, I have a conversation with God. And, him and I have been tight from as young as I can remember, because I remember Mom praying to this invisible man that I couldn't see,
right.
but she would pray to him. And he was around. So, that's when I had, and it was this almost this long awaited moment. It was supposed to happen because light bulb effect, right? Just like Einstein, it's like you know, everything becomes common sense when you realize that it was all common sense. It just made sense. So yeah, but again, as you know, I hit rock bottom 101 times, but there's just that thing about life, man. It's like I said, the crooked stick analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you realize it at 30, 40, 50. Colonel Sanders didn't come up with KFC to 65.
Right.
So, there's just these stages in life. And my objective is to have people confront those rock bottoms, have them face them, don't hide from them, and have them really dig into those demons and fight the fight that they've pretty much been avoiding their entire lives. And they don't realize if you fight that fight, man, just like fighting Mike Tyson, just like the Tyson Wilder fight. I mean, it's you fight the fight,
Yeah.
you're gonna get credit just for fighting the fight, and then at that point you can say, you know what, lick your wounds, I did it. What's next?
Do you remember the point where, not necessarily the book, but going through your life experiences, realizing that you've come up from that rock bottom point? Was there a point where you understood that it was more than just telling your story, more than just writing this, autobiographical document down? That it was like, wait a minute, there's something more here. There is a plan. There is some tangible things that, by you telling your story, helps other people develop an understanding for this plan that they can enact in their life, they can put into place, and find themselves on the road to whatever that happens to be: success, being a better father, being a better partner, just being a better human being, finding ways to get up every day and to make the best out of life. Like, when did it become more than you telling your life story and more of like, here's my life story, but here are the things, the valuable lessons that I have learned through my experiences that can help others to achieve whatever it is they're looking to achieve?
I realized that I'm not going to say, I'm not going to undersell it, that anyone can write a book, because I mean, anyone could write a book, but it's just a long process, and you have to learn a lot of things along the way. But a book is a book, and my story is my story, but it's no different than your story, her story, his story, because even though we might have had different experiences, the pain of depression is still I don't care who you are, where you are. I'll even go as far as saying, if we ever discover life on other planets and depression exists for them, I bet you'd be the same damn thing as we feel.
Yeah.
Anxiety is anxiety. Thoughts of suicide are thoughts of suicide. The guilt of doing terrible things that you've never apologized for, or that you can never, you can't live with it or haunt you, still the same pain. So I realized that if I don't identify what it is that I learned, what steps it was that I learned, and what were the basic fundamental roots of my change, the book will be a book. And if it's great, don't get me wrong, it'll do a lot of good, but showing somebody, like in the end of the book, the bonus material, providing someone steps to see after you read the book, oh, so now he's saying, envision a future worth living for. Step number one, period. Now you go back to the story and say, yeah, I remember when he wrote when he was a kid and he hated his life and his mom was abusing him and he was dealing with all this, all these childhood depression issues, ADHD labeled. His envisioning of what a potential happy future looked like kept me focused on, this is temporary.
Yeah.
This can't last forever if I dream about something else. As long as I'm dreaming, as long as I'm envisioning, I'm not here right now. And then how do you get to that? How do you get to believe in this happiness that is, again, just a dream, just a vision? Well, you have to find a source of hope. You have to connect to a source of hope. If you don't connect, and I don't care if you call that source God, Jesus, Allah, the universe, I don't care what name you give it. I don't care if you call it a teddy bear. As long as it's your source of hope, that you know that when the well is dry, this will give you a little bit more umph to triumph. That's source of hope. Okay, so I have hope. I have the dream. How do I do it? Well, third step, you set goals, you strategize a plan, and then you put it into immediate action. Listen, I've been to 7 or 8 different denominations of churches. When I was locked up and after I read the Quran. I mean, I've tried to study and learn after dropping out of high school and getting a GED. I try to give myself the knowledge the same way those before me learned, self-taught.
Yeah.
And I realized that God isn't going to come to save you no matter how much you pray. Like there's an old saying, the guy who's drowning in the ocean, he's praying to God. A boat comes, a helicopter, and everything comes and rescue. He's like, no, I'm just waiting for God.
Right.
Well, God says after you're dead, hey, man, I sent you 3 lifeboats here, and you said no. So you have to literally get on those 2 feet or get on those fingers and start doing something about it. So you set the goal, you get a plan, you execute that plan within 3 days. You literally only have 3 days. If you do number 1, 2, 3, and you execute it in 3 days, your life will literally change like immediately. Not in the sense of like your dreams would come true, but that thing that you thought you could never accomplish, or that step that you thought you could never take, or that door that you thought would never open will just open like that in 3 days. So, and then you keep going, you build a foundation that your future can stand on, because if you're going to change, you can't stay on the same foundation that you've always been on. That's a shaky foundation. It's cracked. It's a mess. Just like Will Smith, his father told him, how do we build this wall? Brick by brick by brick. That's it. Brick at a time. You build a new foundation brick by brick. When you build that new foundation, you go ahead and start identifying things. Now that you got a solid ground, you can start battling. I mean, you can accept war and you can go to war, because the ground that you're on, the landscape, the map, the land. This is your territory. No one can mess with it. You built it. So you start now attacking those toxic patterns of behavior. You start attacking, you start identifying what they are. It's not very difficult, because people have been telling you your whole life. Yep. Your mom's been saying you're dead. You know what it's like, right? Yeah. So, and then you go on, you establish fundamental boundaries, and we would just keep going on and on about that later. But, I identified this, and I said, okay, once I provide this to people, they're going to at least have a better understanding as to how it is that I did all these, because I explained them in the book very articulately, sometimes long-windedly, but I do explain it, but it gives you at least a rubric. Say, okay, that's how he did this, that, and the other. So,
there's setting that structure up. I mean, I love it, because you go through the journey of the book, and you go through the journey of your story, and then, having encapsulated all that as a reader, and then being able to go back and say and have those direct correlations to, oh, this is when he put the plan in place. This is when he made this decision. This is when he made these changes. This is when he built his foundation. Like, that is such. It's one thing to have that list, but it's another thing to have the list and then to have like identifiable points where you go, oh, okay. And it, again, as the reader, it may not be their exact, well, Carlos and I were in the exact same spot when we were 4 years old. We had the same thing, but there is such, and I know there's a lot of numbers that you talk about throughout the course of the book and throughout the course of the conversation. We'll get to some of them, but people experience child abuse, and people experience sexual abuse, and people experience depression and anxiety, and all the statistics that are out there. They're experienced in different ways, but to have that correlating part where they go, oh, that was his rock bottom, I remember mine, or he experienced this as a child, I remember mine was this point.
Exactly.
So your story, as they reflect back on as the reader, then all of a sudden aligns with their story, and then they can utilize their own fuel and their own energy, but have you as kind of that reference point of here's the direction that CJ took when he had this, and then he took the step up to here. Because you talk about the pain of the past, and everybody has it, and some people, you can ask them if they have it and they will say no, but you and I both know that stuff is buried underneath. Like, there's laundry on top of it, and there's probably like a litter box somewhere. Like, there's just stuff piled on top of the pain of the past. And I think unbeknownst to a lot of people, unbeknownst to people, they go through their day-to-day stuff, and they don't even know that weight is still there, and it's 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 25 to 30 years. It's always been there. They don't know a life where they don't drag that pain and that hurt with them. They can be the nicest person. We were watching Night at the Museum last night, and the original one with Robin Williams in it. And I was like, man, you watch Robin Williams in that movie, and you watch him in Mrs. Doubtfire and all the great movies, and you go, there's no way. But here is a guy who came across as just this jovial, brilliant, funny, lighthearted actor, comedian. He was carrying around such pain and such weight. Like, we all got it.
Crazy.
So how do you propose? Because maybe there is no great solution to this, but how do you getting people to understand, and maybe it is reading somebody else has experienced something similar, that go, oh yeah, I still have that baggage.
Right.
But how do you get them to go, I need to address this, understand it, and let it go, utilize it as fuel? Like, what's the process when you're dealing with the pain of the past, especially when you have people that don't acknowledge that it was there or that it existed?
Well, it's a good question, because, everybody has a different level of tolerance per se, right? I mean, like when back in our youthful days, they'd be the 2 beer people already drunk, and then you'd have the guy or the chick who's up all night still, pounding them back.
Oh yeah.
Everybody has a level of tolerance. It's just the way it works. But that's why AA exists, right? That's why those 5 stages of grief are the real thing. It's acceptance. But here's the way I look at it. You've heard of midlife crisis, of course, right? Most people get the midlife crisis, but then you got the others that just, the guy buys a sports car and just disappears, or the lady gets plastic this and that, and you're like, what happened? Where did you go from this person to that? We're all carrying that weight. We're all having that issue that's in us. But what we don't realize is how it manifests. Yeah. People say work hard. As long as you're working, you'll be successful. Well, I've met people that work themselves to the grave. I used to bartend at TGI Fridays here in Eau Claire, and I'll never forget this story. A successful guy was just retiring. He said, I think he was a week or maybe a couple of months away from retiring. But man, he looked down as hell. And I'm like, my job as a bartender is to lift your spirits up, say a few jokes, and get you to forget. And I asked him, of course, in the story, he told me, he says, I've worked for 45 years of my life. I've given my wife everything she has, a pair of fake breasts, everything. She got everything she wanted.
Right.
My 2 daughters are in college, pursuing their dreams, but they hate me. What the hell do you mean? Yeah, because I was never there. Yeah. All I did was work. I gave them everything they wanted, but all they wanted was me. Now, there's a balance, right? Because no matter what you do, you can't make people happy. You work too much, or you don't work enough. The wife's mad because you don't make enough. The kids are mad because you're never home. I get it. I get it. There's never a perfect answer to it. But what I can tell you is, if you find yourself stuck with a pattern of behavior, stuck with a set of beliefs, and you're doing everything that you're supposed to, or you checked off all the boxes of the expectations that you were supposed to fulfill, and you're still not happy, you may want to look into the past a little bit more. Yeah. You may want to look into, that childhood molestation that you thought you moved on from, but you're completely insecure, or you're addicted to porn, whatever it is. You may want to look into that heartbreak that you swore you'd never experience again in your life, but now you're a control freak and you have trust issues, and you can't let your partner be who they are. If you have an issue with, too disciplined, too structured, where everything has to be this way and there's no other way. Well, you may want to look into how your parents raised you and that abuse that you had to grow up with at home, that rigidity. You know, people hide behind money, they hide behind their religion, they hide behind politics, they hide behind social media,
Mm.
they hide behind anything that they feel another group of people would commend them for. And as long as they're getting those praise and that accolades, they're doing all right as far as society is concerned. But what I identify in the book a lot of is my realization. I've always been, since I was a kid, they called it ADHD,
Oh, yeah.
and I call it ADHD too, whatever. But I don't think it's an issue. I think it's an actual, to me, it's like a superpower because I was able to hyper focus on things and I was able to pay more attention than other people to things. And the downfall is pay less attention to things that I should have. But by paying attention to those things, I just understood human beings. And I saw what life was like for me as a poor immigrant from Puerto Rico, growing up in the hood and then moving, living with a mom who found a good husband, who pursued the American dream, had it all.
Mhm.
I had a water, I had it all. And then lose that after a divorce, then go back to poverty as a teen, and then leave that for a few, well, stay in poverty, but leave the hood and go to the burbs. And then I saw the kids with the beautiful homes,
Yeah.
white picket fences, all the opportunities and privileges you could imagine in life, just getting blackout drunk, girls having, they talk about, the hood inner city, young girls having babies. Well, the difference is those girls haven't gotten birth control yet because their parents haven't given it to, they
Right.
got these girls doing the same thing in the burbs. You got alcoholic mom and dad completely abusing children and hiding behind that beautiful home,
Yeah.
neglecting their, so you have all these issues. And I said, okay, so these kids are as miserable as the kids in the hood. And they, one's poor, one's middle class, upper middle class, but they're both just miserable with life.
Right.
What's going on here? What seems to be the issue here? Because Columbine took place for a reason, because the hood has a high crime rate for a reason. You know, we would go to the Tewksbury, from Lowell to Tewksbury, which is the town next over, because that was where the white kids were.
Yeah.
And that's where we would steal the bikes because they had the bikes.
Right.
And that's what they have the money, until I realized, yeah, they may have a steady job, but some of them are living paycheck to paycheck. Some of them are just living because they're living up to the expectations that a mom or dad told them to live up to.
Right.
They found the right husband, they got the right job, and they hate themselves, they hate their life. So at the end of the day, I said, okay, if I'm a human and I know my issues, I know all the stuff I had to deal with, and I know the decisions that I had to make, some of them unwantingly, but I had to make them to survive, then the way that they're reacting is the same way that I'm reacting.
Yeah.
And they have it all. These behaviors, these patterns of behavior almost seem to be the same thing. They have the same outcome. Why do they have the same outcome? Well, I had the luxury of being able to live and adapt. I was able to adapt into all of my environments, blend in with the country club, go back to the hood and blend in with my ex-gang members.
Mm.
I was able to work corporate America and then go to the barbershop and pound a pint of Bacardi and a rock star right before I go out clubbing. I did all that.
Yeah.
And I understood that the problem is the fact that we're all hiding behind something, and we all have our demons. And the more we smother these bad boys up and think that by doing the things that we're expected to do and that we think will equal success, we're going to be all right. But ask Robin Williams, rest in peace.
Yeah.
Ask, Heath Ledger. Listen, you could go down the list. Amy Winehouse. You can go
Right.
on and on and on. Money, success, it's not going to do it, unfortunately. Gary Vee goes across the country, if not world, and I've seen plenty of videos where people go to him and say, Gary, I'm successful, but I'm freaking miserable. I don't know what I'm doing. So money's not the answer. Okay. So you want to get into a hobby, you want to work out or whatever, you want to go and get your mind focused on some hobby. Well, then you become detached from your own issue, because you're running from the issue by focusing on something else to just forget about it. Some people invest all their time in their children, thinking that if I give all my attention to my kids and I forget about that pain and I do the opposite of what my parents did, I'm going to be fine. I'll be okay. But they forget that eventually your children are going to grow up and they'll move out and they'll find someone else.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck with yourself again. You're stuck with your, at the pattern repeat. You're always going to be stuck with yourself eventually.
Yeah.
Whether you're married or divorced, whether your children you're left alone, whether you're job and then you get fired, whether you're a superstar. I just talked to a friend who does Uber in Florida. He literally told me he was with a very well-known, he gave a ride to a very well-known country singer. And he says, this guy was one of the most insecure human beings I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
He's millionaire, completely insecure, self-conscious, worried about aging, telling me all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, do you know who you are? Mm-hmm. Like, do you know who you are? Right. Like, you're this, that. And so, that's what my book touches on a lot, because we may live in this period in time where the person that you're looking up to, or the person that's giving you advice, or that's your boss or your role model or your mentor, whatever it is, they're doing great now. That's fine. And hopefully they do great forever. But in this blimp in time, they're doing great. But fast forward 10 years from now, how are they doing then? Yeah. Is the direction that they're telling you to head and the direction that you're taking to become successful or to pursue this or do that, is that the direction that is in your natural self? Is that your gift? Is that your why? Is that going to satisfy you at the end of the day? Or are you just doing it because you're trying to run from something else? That's it.
Yeah. I think there's so much to be said about trying to bury the past, to add in different distraction things, whether that it is find a hobby that's I'm going to get super fit, or I'm going to run 5 marathons, or I'm going to do things that's going to occupy my time, and that will make me better. There's that element of it. I also think there is another side of the coin that is, I experienced this, and I will always have experienced that, and I can't get over that fact. I will always carry around the burden, and I will use that as an excuse. I will stay in victim mentality.
Yep.
Because it's strange, because it's a double-edged sword. I will stay in misery because misery seems easier than actually addressing that issue, not using it as a reason to not make yourself better. That is a weird internal dilemma that I imagine a lot of people have to go through, because they're like, well, I can't go and accomplish this, or I can't go and do this because I experienced this in my past, or this is just the way it is, and boo-hoo. And that is another one of those cold pricklies that people have to, utilize the terminology and the steps in this book, but from a different perspective, because it does come with that fact that you have to look at that evil monster in the closet, and you may have to throw may have to go southpaw and throw a couple of punches at that monster in the closet, because if you don't, it's just going to hang out there, and you're going to be traveling amongst your life, and again, spreading that to the people around you for your entire existence, however long that may be.
Yeah. I mean, there's a chapter in the book that I titled, give me 1 second. I titled it for a specific reason, because it seems to be the going pattern of people's trajectory when it comes to trying to, transform or grow or become better, whatever you want to call it. It's called trying to take root in bad soil. We want to start fresh. We want to start new, the New Year's resolution, but we do it in bad soil. Yeah. And we're expecting great fruit. We're expecting to blossom and flourish. I can understand completely what it's like to want to do better, want to change. Everybody wants to do that. I mean, there isn't a person that I've met that doesn't want to be better. But wanting, of course, isn't enough. You know, I want to have a bigger home. I want to do all this, but there's now, okay, if I want to do it, how am I gonna do it? So if you think about, if you think about the saying, fake it till you make it,
Mm.
right? There's a lot of truth in that. I'm a product of faking it till you make it. But that has a double-edged meaning. It's a double entendre, right?
Yeah.
Because you could fake it and be a con, and then become so good at faking it that you never end up really making it, because you become so happy with the accolades and all the attention and all of the pats on the back and the good old boys that you end up getting by faking it and projecting this image that's not true. So the only way that I could understand what it was like to know that I have an issue and attack the issue, obviously confront it,
Mm.
scared as all hell, because there's nothing. It's just, listen, you're your worst enemy, man. It's
Yeah.
just no other way around it. The hardest thing to do is literally go within yourself and tell yourself that you're lying. Tell yourself that that does kill you, that hurts you. I mean, there's just no other way around it. Okay. So knowing that is having to look at other people that you are emulating, fake it, whatever, right?
Mm.
If I want to be successful, like when I was a teenager, Jay-Z, Biggie Smalls, Tupac, all these rappers, Nas, these real insightful, deep lyricists.
Yeah.
I studied those, right? I wasn't them, I wasn't there, but they gave me little tips on what it was like for them in the hood, what it was like for them in the projects, what their friends treated, how their friends treated them, like all the friendships that ended up becoming enemies,
Mm.
all the chicks who ended up, all the stuff. So, boom, I'm not them, but now I got some tips on how to be better, right? So I fake it as if I'm them already.
Yeah.
I'm faking it, faking it, faking it, faking it. I'm getting the accolades, I'm getting the attention, I'm getting the respect that I'm expecting, that I'm working for, but I'm not that yet. I don't have that kind of clout. So what do I have to do? I have to somehow find a way to make people believe that I'm that.
Yeah.
You learn these lessons in life once you start trying new things, facing new demons, going over certain hurdles, and then you realize, okay, I faked it this long and I still haven't made it. And I haven't gotten that much further than what I have. And everything that I think I've accomplished is great in paper, but God, I don't feel any better by
Right.
doing any of this stuff. So let's get rid of faking it now that I apparently made it, because there's only so much faking you can do. Once you become an adult at a certain age in life, it's like the boy who cried wolf. Yeah, okay. It's like me writing this book for 5 years. After a while, people were like, "Yeah, right, he's writing a book." Yeah, I heard this one before. He's writing a book. Yeah. So now I understand that. And listen, I'm 38 years old, still learning, still understanding. But as a resurrection plan, as a resurrector, I understood that if I was going to become this role, you know, knowing I'm Puerto Rican, immigrant, poor kid from the hood, from the projects of Puerto Rico, me feeling that about myself, but working in an environment where I'm getting paid, 4 or 5 grand a month as a 20-year-old, and at the country club with my boss and his fellas,
Yeah.
and polo, and trying to fake it, right?
Yeah.
Learning that experience, absorbing that experience, understanding that experience, I'm like, okay, if it gets to a point where no matter what I do, I'm still not happy, time to reflect, time to sit back and say, all right, now I have to start looking at the ugly stuff, looking at the really nasty stuff about me that I can't make happy. And again, that caused, like Steve Jobs says in a speech to, I think it was Berkeley once, he says, you could only connect the dots going backwards. That's it.
Yeah.
Can't connect them good looking forward. So you go backwards. You keep going back until you find it. And it's the scariest thing you will ever do in your entire life, because it is not the path of least resistance. It is the road less traveled. And the bigger issue is you're going to have to woman up, man up,
Yeah.
and do like something called apologize. You're going to have to do something like put your pride in your back pocket and eat some crap for a little bit. maybe you're going to have to talk to that mom or dad that you never closed that door. And now they're sick and dying. And if you think you have issues now, wait till they pass away with that door open.
Yeah.
So you have all these things that little by little end up defining who we are. We become that nasty person, and we feel doomed to that personality. We feel doomed to that mentality. Like Robin, like Tony Robbins says, he says, and I'm paraphrase here, the one consistent thing about humans is that we define ourselves by the way that we see ourselves, and that's it.
Yeah.
If we see ourselves as that, as a constant human trait across the board, how we see ourselves is how we define ourselves. And the hardest thing to get rid of is that definition of who we think we are.
Yeah.
Once we break that definition, we have a completely new perspective. We're now able to see the world in like 3D, 4D, 8K type stuff. Like, oh my God, where have I been? But if you don't go back and do the hard stuff and be able to identify what these things are, you're not going to be able to see things any different and see yourself any better than who you are. And lastly, there's so many people who can afford to be somebody they're not because they have the financial means or the last name or the reputation that's been carried for a while. And there's just some people we can't help that aren't going to change. It's just too painful for them to change. It's too difficult. Not that we can't. It's just there's no way that they're going to accept it. No one's going to get through them. But when you have that group of people trying to outshine, outproject others, being able to almost smother the conversation, being unable to address this topic because it's too sensitive or it triggers them somehow, and therefore let's just not talk about it. This is a cycle that was going to repeat over and over and over and over again. And at 38 years old with 3 kids, 1, 7, 2, and 1, I look at their future and I tell myself, well, wherever I'm at, I can't, if I see that this is the state of the culture, I can't live just letting that go by.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. Life is uncomfortable. Ask anybody that you and I look up to. Ask all the people that we YouTube for motivational inspiration. They'll tell you it's uncomfortable. But just like David Goggins in Hell Week and become the craziest beast in human society, that guy had to break himself 100 different ways from Sunday in order to be the beast that he is now. And that's just the moral of the story.
And I think people are afraid of doing those types of things. I think there is a level of contentment that you have. You talked about however you get to a certain point, whether that's because of name recognition or it's because you're born into it, the keys to the castle.
Or you worked your ass off and deserved it. Not a problem.
However you got to that point, there is contentment in maybe the people that are just a step lower when they achieve all that it is that they felt like they were supposed to in life. I was supposed to get married at 22, or I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to get married at 22. I was supposed to have 2.5 kids. I was supposed to have the white picket fence. I was supposed to have all this. I'm 35 now, and I have all these things. And I guess I'm good for the next 35 more years doing the same thing. And so, when I looked at, the resurrection promise, I'm like, this encapsulates so much more and can be so utilized by anybody in any position, anybody in any walk of life, any place in life. They can look at this, and take from the book these valuable lessons about, hey, you do have to go and fight those demons in the closet. You do have to address these things. You do have to do, you have to go backwards and you have to address all of the things and find out where it all started and close those doors and then be able to move on. Those memories are still going to be there. You and I both know that.
Can't help it.
though you can let go of the weight, but there will be times when they pop into your
Yep.
head, and it is how you are
Absolutely.
able to utilize these things that you have put down onto paper and say, it's okay. I experienced that. I went through that. I survived that. And here I am now on top of the mountain, or continuing to climb the mountain as you progress forward.
Correct.
There is a great quote that you have in the book, or a phrase, I will say, eating the marshmallow covered turd, or eating the turd covered marshmallow, which we discussed on Friday a little bit. I love that analogy because I think sometimes you just have to tell people how it is. And that's about is like, it's still shit. It's
Right.
there's no real getting around that, is there? Oh, marshmallow. Well, I like marshmallows, but tell me about that
Right.
analogy and how it fits into kind of, the vernacular of the book.
Well, the book, I have three phases towards, becoming somebody different, to extracting the greatness out of you. It's going to be naturally the pain, it's going to be the path, and it's going to be the promise of what you get. It's called the resurrection plan.
Mhm.
It's the 8 steps towards change, and I define change literally as the acronyms: controlling how adversity navigates growth and empowerment. Because adversity is what's defined all of us. It's, that's where I get the turd covered marshmallow covered turd.
Right.
Like I state, what if you had the chance to literally, like a genie came out of a bottle, you had a chance to live your dreams, and it just depended on one choice, right? You had one choice. Which would you rather suffer through, right? Would you rather eat a turd covered marshmallow or a marshmallow covered turd? Now, you have the visual. You have a turd covered marshmallow, or then you have a marshmallow filled with turd. That's I don't know. Some people would say, or okay, here's the option C, or you could just forfeit your dreams altogether, completely. Choose none of the above and just kiss them goodbye, which a lot of people would do. Most people would actually do that. See, because Aristotle once said, where perception is, there also are pain and pleasure. And where these are, there of necessity is desire. It's the desire. The perception that upfront pain, which is a turd covered marshmallow, is any better or worse, I guess, than back end pain, which is marshmallow covered turd, is, as Aristotle says, a matter of necessity and desire.
Yeah.
The pain's still going to be there no matter how you look at it. You eat the marshmallow covered turd, you deal with the pain up front.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you deal with the pain out back. You eat the turd covered marshmallow, you deal with the pain up front. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, slowly it's what we do is that people don't understand, and it's the first phase that I say to get people to actually start looking at their issues and changing. It's the first phase. It's where perception is, there's going to be pain no matter how you look at it, or there's going to be happiness. The pain still exists. It's not going to disappear because you chose to avoid it. If you do, all you simply do is become prisoner to that thinking. By avoiding the pain, you're avoiding to deal with it. And then the next issue that you come up with, you either avoid to deal with it, or however you solve that last problem becomes the way you solve the next problem, and the problem after that, and the problem after that. All you're doing is just slowly programming yourself to make the bulk of your decisions on how something in the past made you feel in the present.
Yeah.
It's all based on the feeling aspect of it. Most people don't know, but we have in our brain, it's called neural pathways, and they're pretty much a series of connected neurons in our brain that send information, to where it belongs. It's like a highway, right? A brain superhighway. It's how we interact with the world and how we learn, experience emotions and sensations, and create memories. But at the end of the day, they're developed by the pattern of thinking that we form consciously and unconsciously. So these neural pathways literally are formed like construction by our thoughts.
Yeah.
And these thoughts create that path towards whatever part of your brain that thought needs to go to. Whether it's something that, like the color red, makes you feel sad for some reason, who knows? That's a thought that you created subconsciously or consciously. So now, here's the kicker. Recent studies tell us that we have about 6,200 thoughts a day. 90% of those thoughts are repetitive. We already thought them before, the day before that. 80% of them are negative. So this tells us two things. One, that we have about 10% of our brains to actually use to make new thoughts, good thoughts, better thoughts, to grow, to become better human beings, or just to live our lives. And secondly, we're already starting behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
So the same thoughts we already had, the majority of them, 80% of them are already negative. 10% is all we have to use to actually work with. And here, we not only have to be parents, we have to do countless numbers of things on a daily basis, stressful work. We have PTSD, we have anxieties, we have depression, mental health issues, deal with loneliness, the pain of a past. I mean, you name it, we already have these things inside of us. So it's no wonder why a lot of people struggle with change,
Yeah.
struggle with accepting change, because it's very difficult to work with 10% of all you have to work with when your day is consumed by energy drainers, time wasters, people, social media,
Yeah.
dopamine hits constantly, serotonin loss, because after you're done with that social media and you're not in that life, you're in regular life and it's not as exciting anymore. You have to deal with a broken heart, an ex, a response. Listen, it does not end.
Hmm.
That sucks. We all know that. We all know that. That's the issue that I want people to at least understand, that we're all in the same boat here. You could
Yeah.
you could be super filthy rich and have all the access for the easy life to be able to afford yourself less stress. But at the end of the day, the issues do not go away. No matter if you have all the resources in the world to make you have an easier time choosing whether you eat the turd covered marshmallow or the marshmallow covered turd. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The pain will always be there. The goal and the idea is to confront that pain. Literally say, I know it sucks. I know, okay, like raising a child.
Yeah.
It's that tough love. It's those tough decisions. It's literally telling your child, listen, I know you want XYZ, and I know that you earned it and deserved it. But if you just do this, or you get this done, or you push a little harder, or you try, you'll get teaching them. Or you know what? We're in public. Learn how to sit down in a chair right.
Right.
Learn how to say please and thank you. Just these things that, but when you're traveling through life with children unconsciously, and you're numbing yourself out to the world as a parent because you're already stressed, your 10% is now like down to 1%, and you
Yeah.
literally have nothing in you anymore. Your child is at this point raising him or herself. And what the kicker about children is that I realized is that just from my own life, the two things children do is they literally learn from us when we don't know they're learning from us.
Yeah.
They don't learn the things well, they do remember the things we told them, and those become valuable pillars in their life. But most of the time, most of it, it's us when we're talking to friends. It's us when we're watching TV or talking to us. It's when we are not paying attention to what we're doing that they're learning. The second thing, while they're learning, they're judging the hell out of us because they have no experience.
Right.
They don't know any life more than what the life that we provide them. It's exactly why we say, you ungrateful little turd, if you knew what it was like for me back then, da-da-da-da. Well, you can say that all you want.
Right.
Yeah, I used to walk up it. They have no concept. Their brains can't even fathom what you're talking about right now. But what they do know is the life that you're giving them, and how they're judging you as a parent while they're learning from you as a parent. And every time that they get yelled at or get a spanking or get punished or don't get what they're supposed to, they're judging you for that.
Yeah.
That's expected. So to try to live a life to constantly satisfy your children, constantly make them happy, or coddle them, or not want them to be sad, their children are literally judging you. Even if you're trying to make them feel better, they're learning from that. They're learning from your judgment on them and on others, and they're learning from who you are as a person. So when your kid does or says something or turns out to be a certain person and you ask yourself why, how could you? They've been observing everything you've been doing behind closed doors, not in public. I'm not perfect. I tell you, I swear like a truck driver, but it's just what I do. I try to balance parenthood and also, discipline and structure, but at the same time, I have to let I have my kids need to experience what pain is.
Right.
Not physical, but you know, if I could take my kid in this light in the environment I give him and give him like a little boot camp in the hood where I grew up, I guarantee you the kid will probably come back and just kiss the ground he walks on because it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
why? Now, most parents, what is that we all do as parents? Try to give our kids a better life
Then
and
we
a
had.
better opportunity for their future than we had, right?
Yep.
And in the meantime, while we're doing that, we're not realizing we're protecting them from the things that are going to make them and become better people.
Yeah.
We're creating traumas. Yes, the life is sucks and life is painful and life is going to screw you every which way for Sunday. But at the end of the day, those opportunities that they get to suffer are going to be able to define the character, the persistence, the perseverance, the ability of how they manage their lives when you're gone, if you would die, and or how they manage their lives when they move out of this world or move out of your house and go out on their own.
Yeah.
So that analogy about the marshmallow covered turd, I use it a lot when I ask people the question because I want to get their perspective. Because it's like the psychological test on kids. The kid who doesn't eat the marshmallow up front and waits a few minutes gets 2, but the kid who eats it statistically is going to be a more problematic kid down the road.
Right.
Well, yeah, fantastic. People think that's the same analogy, and it's almost like a trick question.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, bro. But you get them thinking about it, and by getting them to think about it, it gives me an answer and insight as to the type of person or their thinking, what their thinking is like. And by getting inside of their head a little bit, I'm able to identify what it is that literally, like in the first 5 minutes, what it is that's almost plaguing them.
Yeah.
And then we evolve into finding out the life coach aspect of it. Why they can't find love, why they can't seem to find some sort of happiness in whatever they do, and all these things, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the parenting stuff that we talked about, when you look at it from the parent perspective, which obviously you have and I have as well, it's eerie yet really clear how it all ties itself together to the pain, the past, whatever you're holding on to, grudges against your own parents, the way they parented you, the experiences that you had, and the way that we say things like, I want to give you a better environment than I had, or I'm not going to do the same parental things that my parents did because, I held on to resentment for 20 some odd years.
Correct.
But you tie all those things together when you don't let go of that pain of the past and how much, unbeknownst perhaps you don't even see it or acknowledge it or know that it's happening, but how much that quietly influences almost all decisions you make as a parent because you're holding on to that. Whether that's the pain of the past, whether that's your own fears of being able to go and do things and accomplish things. And you're like, well, I know I can't go and do this.
Yeah.
Because I put that wall up and I won't let it go down because of the pain of the past or whatever it is. But you will put that type of weight onto your child when you don't show them like you can go and do. You put restrictions on yourself. Those restrictions will fall down upon your children. Even if you're trying not to have it be done, it will be done. If you become content and like, well, I go to this miserable job and I hate it every single day. I want to bang my head against the wall, and I do. And I come home and I drink because I'm miserable. But then, hey, what? But I got the job. I really wanted to be a veterinarian.
Right.
Really wanted to write a book. CJ.
Right.
Wanted to do all these things. Didn't do it. All your kids see is like, whoa. So I can't do this. I can't accomplish things.
Right.
And then the cycle repeats itself, as you mentioned as well. Now you've just passed along all those unmotivated, tendencies onto your child, and they'll go on and they'll say, I'm going to go and take on the world. Then they'll fall into that same, well, I'm in this job and it pays the bills and it sucks and I bang my head against the wall every day, but it's just
I tell you,
tangled web, man. It's a tangled web. I do want to talk about. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And I wanted to get this one point out. What happens is when the pain of our past has a grip on the problems in our present,
Mm,
our perception to avoid pain altogether becomes the anchor that a lot of us shackle our untapped potential and unfulfilled dreams to,
yeah.
literally. And that's just the way it works. It's like, okay, what motivates or what is the number one motivator to help a kid go from training wheels to a bicycle? Like literally from four wheels to two wheels. It's falling.
Yeah.
It's the pain.
Hmm.
Literally. After falling a few times, you learn quick, I have to get a hold of this and figure this situation out so I cannot fall again. If you keep putting training wheels on your life and trying to prevent yourself from falling, eventually when you do fall and you're older and your body isn't as sturdy and your bones are a little more fragile,
Yeah.
it's going to hurt 100 times more than it would have if you addressed that way back when.
Yeah. Something I should have brought up maybe in the open, but the title of the book is we talked 3 years ago. I was like, this CJ takes over the world, CJ versus the world. Like I had titles, but
Right, right.
the resurrection plant is the name of the book. Tell me how that ties in, in the meaning behind the title and how it
Okay.
really describes exactly how, this book was written and the benefits of reading through the whole thing.
Well, the resurrection plant is an interesting plant. It's a plant from the Sahara Desert,
Hmm.
the Dead Sea. It lives in one of the most inhospitable environments you could ever imagine. Um, the also cool thing about this plant, the symbolism behind it in my book, in my life, has a lot to do with its ability over, however many hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, who the hell knows, its ability to adapt, but the special trait that it created.
Hmm.
See, it's a form of tumbleweed,
Hmm.
this resurrection plant. Um, what it does is, in order to survive in this climate, which nothing literally survives, plants have to, that's why they grow so short,
Hmm.
because they have to be so short to compact all that moisture in there in order to sustain all the heat. The plant sheds 95% of its water, of what it literally has itself as water, and only keeps 5%. It enters a state of stress mode. And in that state of stress mode, what the plant does, it just tumbles.
Hmm.
It tumbles and tumbles and tumbles everywhere. And it tumbles 10 years, 20, who knows? To this day, scientists can't figure out how long this plant actually lives for. No one knows, because its ability to be able to die, tumble. Now, when I say tumble, I mean the wind carrying this plant wherever the wind takes it.
Yeah.
Is a like as we see National Geographic, it could rain 20 feet that way, and the wind's pushing the plant that way, and it'll never get water again.
Yeah.
And without water, the plant can't blossom. And without it blossoming, what this plant, since it's an asexual plant, it can't drop its pods of seeds of life and then let those pods become new life for the next generation to be able to carry on its fruit and carry on its existence. I called it that just naturally because I've had to die so many times. I've had to hit the rock bottom over and over again, go to different environments and different places, from Puerto Rico projects to Hartford projects to duplex, a house in West Hartford. So you go from poverty to middle class, upper middle class, taking karate classes and saxophone classes and all this stuff. And then as a teen, boom, your legs cut right from under you. And then you go right back to poverty, to a closet version of a home. And then figure out and then move to a different state, a different school, new environment, different culture, and then have to adapt to that. And then when you adapt to that, life hits you again, and you have to adapt to homelessness. And then after that, you get sent back to Puerto Rico as a teenager, and you have to see these terrible mind-searing traumas, death and gore and macabre and violence and people trying to kill you and just insanity.
Mm.
And then you have to live with those traumas. and go back to a regular society and adapt again. Then go from the hood to the burbs as the black speck on a white sheet,
Hmm.
standing out like a sore thumb, and adapt somehow to that. And not only adapt, be seen as an equal, as a
Yeah.
human, be seen as somebody who may not look the same, but is no different than you, and then adapt to life on your own as an adult without ever being told how to be an adult, without even no concept of no valuable principles, code of ethics, nothing besides church and the things that you learned
Yeah.
growing up that meant something new to you. Learn what it's like to love. Learn what it's like to say the word I love you. But after saying the word I love you, understand what that word actually represents, not only to a person that you are have a relationship with, but a friendship, an animal, a anybody. And then let that flourish into a sense of normalcy, of what normalcy looks like in progress, and adapt to that environment when you come from nothing but chaos and toxicity. And you have to adapt somehow to normal, I would say, I was dating a white girl at the time, to normal, white American lifestyle.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving and Christmases and quiet and all this stuff when, you're a Latino who grew up with music and seasoning and colors and all this, flamboyance, right? All this a different personality, adapt.
Yeah.
So my life has been just a transition of adaptions and being able to use those adaptions to try to survive
Hmm.
to my environment. And when I survive from my environment, realizing this can't just be it. Life can't just be nothing but constant survival. I'm going to lose it. I'm going to off myself. What's the point of all this?
Yeah.
So you then realize what's more, what else is out there. So you survived. What's after surviving? Thriving. What's after thriving? It's creating this new foundation that you don't need all the money, all the prestige, all the accolades to be happy.
Yeah.
That you don't need to have the hot girlfriend or the new whip or the latest clothes or the dopest shoes or the bling or the bank account, all this. Don't need all that.
Yeah.
So, okay, how do I deprogram myself from what who I
Yeah.
thought I was to the person I should be? How does that even look like? Well, you have to go back and realize that there's things that have to be fixed first. Gears, cogs, and sprockets need to be aligned and oiled and tuned like a fine watch in order for the person you want to become to function properly. Well, that that gets done. Fine. I address my issues and so forth. Now, how do I keep this consistent? I have to form a routine. So you become used to this lifestyle of becoming a resurrection plant, becoming a resurrector, because you realized a long time ago that having to stand up for yourself, having to pick yourself up from your bootstraps, having to be able to be the minority,
Hmm.
having to be the person that has to work 10 times as hard to get recognized, despite you looking just like everybody else, you talking articulate like everybody else, you this, you that, you the other, but you're not giving the credit because you're just not one of us, man.
Hmm.
You didn't grow up like us,
Oh.
Having to do all that, realizing these things makes you understand that, okay, there has to be a point in life where I know no matter what it is that I do, I'm never going to be good enough. No one's ever going to accept me. I'm never going to get recognized. Who cares? Now it's time for me to find out what it is that I want to do. What is it that I'm good at? What is it that I was sent on this earth to do? Because all this suffering couldn't have been for nothing. You know, Friedrich Nietzsche has a saying, I think we've all know what it is. To live is to suffer, and to survive is to find meaning within that suffering. You find the meaning for what it is that you were going through, why, and then at that point you're able to deconstruct who you were and construct the better person who you are. So the resurrection plant, which is the rose of Jericho, by the way, that's a colloquial term for
Hmm.
it. It's a rose of Jericho. That rose, it's a very special. There's a lot of amazing properties. It's used in a spiritual sense as well. It's used in a holistic sense as well. And for my book, it's used in the sense of the symbolism behind needing to become something you never ever thought you would become, to survive the things you never ever thought you need to survive. So when that rainfall does come, which represents hope,
Yeah.
you're able to blossom. You're able to become what you know you've always been, what you know you have the potential of becoming, and then take those pods full of life and let them just seed them. Let them now go on to the world and affect others with what you were able to overcome, what you were able to achieve. And now, on a scientific aspect of it, is if like I gave you Dr. Jill Farrant.
Hmm.
This is the cool part about all this. Dr. Jill Farrant is a molecular scientist from South Africa, Cape Town. You can Google her. There's video. Armani did videos on her. I mean, this lady's well known. Um, but global warming, wherever you fall on the political spectrum of it, there are parts in the world that are experiencing drought. There's just no other way to look at it.
Hmm.
And those parts of the world that are experiencing drought are having an effect on the local economy, on the global economy, on our crops. There are three ingredients that most of our foods have in them, which is maize, corn, wheat, and grain. That's what most of our food is made out of,
Hmm.
outside of meat and vegetables. So if this plant, which like seeds can last hundreds of years and survive, and when you plant them they become actual flowers or whatever they are, those what happens, what is it that happens to the seed that goes from being within heat tolerant,
Hmm.
water loss tolerant, and then going from that to needing consistent source of water in order to survive? Well, the resurrection plant within its genetic makeup has the answer to that, because it can live without water
Yeah.
and then become green and go back to being a tumbleweed over and over and over again. So she's broken down the genome of this plant. She broke down the genome of this plant. She's actually done TED Talks, and she's shown how within a span of 6 weeks, standard crops die without X amount of water. But the ones that have the genetic, which you can call it GMOs, but GMOs, a lot of stuff is GMO. A
Right.
lot of our plants have been modified either through crossbreeding or to however it works, but not necessarily GMO to genetic modification to make them bigger or juicier. None of that.
Right.
She's genetically modified its code to make them last longer. So farmers in South Africa don't need to die, lose their living, how our world does not need to suffer through a global warming catastrophe because this part of the world didn't get enough rain, because this part of the world froze, because these crops died, and now we have no corn, we have no way to provide, food to the supermarkets.
Hmm.
She's tapped into that, and over the course of time, she's going to be developing pretty much seeds
Yeah.
for farmers across the world to be able to have the crops last longer. I sent her an email. I did a Hail Mary, bro. I said, I've been following this lady for years.
Mhm.
And when my book is done, I swear I'm going to hit her up. And I'm a little small guy. So, I'm just going to do a Hail Mary, see if she catches it. So I sent her an email and I said, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I'm writing this book, and I've been following you for so many years. And, I just think it would mean the world to me if you could somehow, endorse me or just give me a little shout out or maybe a video or whatever, live stream or something like that. And her little reply was, wow. I got a reply back from her, by the way, the next day, which blew my mind. She says, firstly, I cannot wait to read your book. And then she had personal struggles herself and so on and so forth. And she says, I will be honored to do a video, to do a live stream, to write a letter to you on your book launch release as a representation of how much I back what you're doing.
Hmm.
And dude, I'm a kid from the hood, bro. I'm not a doctor, okay? I'm not a molecular scientist who just decoded the genome of a resurrection plant.
Yeah, me
Whatever.
either. I did not even come close to any of those things.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm over here like, wow, okay, cool. So in the future, I'm going to be working with her to create a self-empowerment, self-growth program course behind the science of this plant, the actual facts behind the plant, and also the social aspect of how my book and everything I broke down with the plan applies to all of us, and how all of us can become, in the sense, resurrectors, people who've overcome their deaths over and over and over again, and still can't understand why they have to keep living this life. What's the purpose of all this? I can not only show you through my book, but I'll be able to show you through my courses, and also be able to show you through the time that's elapsed, months, and all the speeches I'll do and things, how you're able to take all the things that you thought you'd never ever overcome. Like a kid told me in Stout University, I gave a speech a few years ago, and he told me he was going to go become some law enforcement, and then he got into an issue with the courts, and he got arrested, and he was on the verge of suicide because he thought that his dreams to become anybody was over.
Yeah.
And after hearing my story, he says, wow, you've given me hope, and you've given me a different perspective, that just because plan A didn't work, plan B will work, because plan B is only another way to make my plan A work.
It's incredible, man. I mean, it's all incredible. That nice job on the Hail Mary. You sent it and came back. And I think that is going to be such a cool, it's going to be fun to watch that progress and to grow, because it really does break things down when you talk about that molecular level in plant life, but also the molecular structure of like humans and the things that we're just, well, it's just in my DNA. I'm like this because it's in my DNA. Well, if you find a way to extract that information and say, well, actually, as a resurrector, these are the things that we can accomplish, and here's the map, and here's the plan, and here's the course to do it. So, I mean, kudos to you on.
Same with the neural pathways.
Yeah.
You can create new ones.
Yeah.
Just because that's the way that you've thought and the way that you're used to thinking doesn't mean you can't break that pattern and create, through cognitive retraining, a new way of thinking, which then becomes your subconscious thinking.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. I want to ask you personally, all that's led up to today, the day the book comes out. Again, it's a process that you and I discussed 3 years ago or so. We're not good with dates, apparently. But to be able to have this day arrive and this moment, that all the work, when there were plenty, I'm sure plenty, CJ, of exit ramps, you could have been like, it's I put the work in, but it just seems like it's constant. There's more things, and then there's kids, and then all the things that we talked about. For you, what does today feel like in the grand scheme of this project, how it ties into telling your life story, probably addressing some things that you had forgotten about over the course of the years, but to have it all come to, I don't want to say to fruition today, because I think this is, and you will attest to, this is not something that ends today because the book comes out. This is something that begins today because the book comes out. But what is today like for you, that this part of the plan has happened?
Execution.
Yeah.
It feels like, running a triathlon and finally hitting that finish line. All those years of training, all the years of doubts, of insecurity, the years of, life coming and giving you an uppercut, jab, and a hook. It's like, really? I don't need that right now. I hell don't need that. It's knowing that I was prepared for these moments because of the things that I experienced.
Yeah.
It's having a kid that's born, and then having 2 kids born in a matter of 3 years, and having COVID 2020 shut us down, and literally having affect the finances, your personal life, having you on the verge of quitting when you spent your entire life knowing that quitting was not an option. But now you have these little lives that give you more meaning than you ever thought you could have meaning for. It's like, I never understood that because I never had kids, and until now. So all this mounts up to knowing that the values, the principles, and the code of ethics that I used when I was, unknowingly at 5 years old, 6 years old, that having the door slammed by you because you have a criminal record, and because your criminal record on paper says you're a bad person, I could never work with someone like you. Meanwhile, this is the best part of it, is statistically me just give you some statistics here, which is, you know, great information to have when people throw that at you.
Yeah.
There's literally, according to Forbes magazine, there's roughly 70 million Americans, which is 1 in 3, that have been arrested or convicted of a crime. And of those, at least 7.7 million were in prison at some point. So knowing that the doors being slammed, the opportunities being quote unquote missed, knowing that more than 40% of college graduates take positions out of school that don't require a degree, and I don't have a degree, I got a GED and I wrote a book, knowing that, you know, for quality of life, there's 20% of Americans who have depression or anxiety disorder that have substance or, you know, have a substance abuse disorder. You know, mental health is killing people, relationships. Let's see what else. There's still on and on, because the statistics are just overwhelming that in the suburbs, statistically, kids commit suicide more than they do in the inner city, but yet in the inner city, the graduation rate is a lot less, and there's 60,000 kids in juvenile detention center on a daily basis. You know, it's just on and on. And so knowing that I overcame all those adversities, that 1 in 7 kids have experienced child abuse and neglect in 2019, and about 1,840 of them have died due to child abuse. I overcame all that. I overcame all of it against the denial, against the depression, the attempt to suicide, everything. And I have a book here. Not only do I have a book, I'm right along the lines of anybody else in history who was able to create a literature work of art and have that define their existence, or at least leave a mark on this earth, when computers and technology and medical science and everything seems to be progressing, but yet the written word listed in a book and then filed in the Library of Congress will live on hundreds of years way past you, and that somewhere, someone, someday will pick that book up and look at your life, and when it matters most, remember that quote, remember that story, remember that word, and say, damn, that saved my life, that changed everything, that I get it now. That right there is you know, not to get all mushy gushy about it, but it is like I said, it's like having a baby, man. It's like my fourth child. It's hey, it's who I am, it's what I am, and it's what I'll leave for my kids, so when they get older, they'll read, because they won't know a lot about this stuff. I mean, what am I going to do? Tell them about all that? No, that's, they have to live a better life and focus on other things. But when it comes and they get to their own depression, or they say, Dad, man, I tell you, I can't do this, or my boss this, or whatever it is, son, take a look at this chapter. Here's what Pops went through. And here's how Pops overcame that. And, you know, maybe you could learn a few things from it. Maybe it could help you. Maybe you have a friend, buddy, who's, you know, down and out and hooked on drugs, or maybe about to off themselves, or whatever it is. Hey, give them this book, have them read this chapter, have them see what I had to go through. You know, it feels overwhelming, but this is just the beginning. Because, you know, you write something like this, you're going to have both sides, people who it makes them feel some kind of way, like, damn, you know, it's almost that reflection in the mirror that they don't want to see. Damn, I don't want to confront that. Oh, I know that happened to me. That hurts. But no, I buried that and I moved on. Sucks for you. No, you think you did. Or the opposite end, saying, thank you for being able to talk about this, because no one's talking about it.
Right.
You know, this area has, as we know, Wisconsin is the brewers, right? The alcohol, there are brewers, right? If you consider Eau Claire, Wisconsin, being voted drunkest town in the nation in 2019, I mean, fine, it's a good bragging rights, because I've been down to Daytona, Florida, and I've been to bars, and there's literally license plates. I mean, licenses that say, if you are from these states, you cannot enter our drinking contest. Wisconsin, loud and proud, my friend. You can't do it. You know, exactly, right? 38.6% of people are driving behind the influence of alcohol as we speak every single day in this town. You know, you have more bars or places that sell alcohol in this state than you do to buy food. You know, so if I look at these things, I tell myself, well, That tells me a couple things. There's a culture here that's being embraced, of course, but not only that, there's a psychological effect. I mean, there's a reason why people are reverting to alcohol constantly all the time. There's a reason why it's okay to bring a 13, 14, 15-year-old to a bar and get drunk with them, because it's your son and you're training this kid to become tolerant. And listen, there's good and bad in all of things, right? All I'm saying is if I know what it's like to get drunk and forget about my problems, I know what it's like to do drugs, candy flip and rainbow trip and do all these things, then I'm aware that I did it for a reason. And it's not just for having fun and partying.
Right.
That runs its course eventually. So, I have to do things like many pioneers have, like many people who have to, rattle some cages. I'm going to be the individual that has to address the uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that because, again, back to having to face those demons, you start not being afraid of much.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what, whatever. I'll be the punching bag. I'll be the one that makes the conversation awkward. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be the one to do it because we're all secretly here hiding with the elephant in the room. So let's talk about it, make it okay to talk about, and then let's find better ways of dealing with that. And if I can get enough people, enough resurrectors, individuals to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm kind of tired. I want to do something different.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to play volleyball and get drunk every single Wednesday or every single Tuesday and every single Monday, which is totally fine. But how long could you keep doing that for before your body says no? And then what's your next hobby?
Right.
Then what's your next thing? Then what are you going to do? You run all the time. I mean, I see you have a routine that you do that keeps you stable, that keeps you steady, and it keeps you going forward. If you deviate from that routine, you almost feel like, what the hell, the chaos is going, what is this? How can I get, because in order for you to stay strong and grounded and mentally sane and stable, you have to do X, Y, Z. And these routines and patterns of behavior are going to allow you the freedom to be able to execute. And that's what I call a resurrector, my friend. You were able to take whatever pains you went through, identify them, address them, find alternative measures of dealing with them, and create a routine to give you the freedom to be able to do the podcast, to do the promotions you do. You are doing the clothes. You're a beast. And I mean, not only are you a beast, you are an example, man. You're a great example. You are a resurrector and a human being that can say, hey, you know what? Money's great and all that stuff, but check this out. I let money go a while back. And here's what I had to do. And here's how I did it, because I had it and now it's gone. So I'm going to give you some advice. You probably won't take it, but when the time comes that it starts making sense to you, hit me up. I'll give you something way more valuable than any money in the world you can ever have. I'll give you my time.
Yeah.
And I'll give you my advice. And when you give that to somebody, which is what my book does, which is what I plan on doing to people, hopefully they find value in you. And then after that, they'll be able to pay it forward to someone else and someone else and someone else, which is what? It is literally the definition of oxytocin. It is how we get oxytocin, by doing something kind for someone else. And then by seeing you do something kind to someone else, my brain gets an immediate hit of oxytocin. And now I want to do something kind to someone else and do it. And that's called paying it forward.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my mission. That's my purpose behind my life and the book. And who knows where the future holds, man.
I think that's a great answer to Kim just posted a question. The number one point that you'd hope that people would take away from the book. I think that's it right there, is that find it, fix it, grow from it, and don't keep it all to yourself. Don't keep all of that positivity, that forward momentum, that growth to yourself. Pay that stuff forward, show somebody else, grow it. And I think that's the great thing, I think, about this book dropping today, being really, besides the years of effort and work and obstacles that you had to go through to get to this point, this is the starting block. This is when the doors open. This is when this becomes the change that expands and grows and goes from the words that you wrote down to the next person, the first person who reads your book, to the next person, and it kind of starts to spread like wildfire. But so I love that.
Here's the other part. we're all great, bro. I mean, we're all, and it's a sad part about life because we get to a point where we have to be responsible for ourselves and other people, which requires paying bills, just having to live life. And when you're caught in that perpetual cycle, you have to let go a lot of your dreams and ambitions and things and all the things that you were naturally good at to be able to give it to someone else and or continue on living this life. But greatness, it's the aspect of us being great. Do you ever met somebody who just has this, like literally this thing with kids? Like there could be a kid crying and this person comes and the kid just calms down.
Yeah.
Or somebody who has that gift with animals, or somebody literally, like where I grew up, Michael Jordan's everywhere, but they end up in like these natural innate gifts. Yeah, I know a lot of those people, and you know what the crazy part about those people is? They do the opposite of what their gift is. It's like the law of the universe.
Yeah.
They are natural born talent human beings and pursue something complete opposite. While we're all sitting back like, bro, what? I wish I had what you had, but no, they don't see it.
Yeah.
And that's what this book does. It allows you to understand that after addressing that pain, after going there and doing the dirty work and transforming, now it's time for the reward. Now it's time for the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's time to see, what is your gift? What are you good at? How do we find that gift? And it's very simple. Like we probably heard before. What are you great at with doing the least amount of effort in? That's it. That's your gift.
Natural.
Steve Harvey says it best. What are you good at? You do the least amount of effort. Okay, that's it. Now, you may not be able to make a living off it right now, but let's get to a little hobby. Let's do a lot of little time. Let's do a little writing right now to get that book done. Let's go type a few words here and there. Hey, let's go knit a little something here. Hey, let's go whatever it is, man. Just do it little by little. You find what your gift is while you're doing what your responsibility is. And at the end of the day, responsibility will start slowly transitioning into your gift, because you're going to get paid, like many people who have done it before does, to do something you love.
Yeah.
And what better it is in life to be able to show your kids that daddy's not going to work. Daddy's going to go have some fun and get paid to have fun. It's stressful when you want to build an enterprise or an empire. Absolutely. But guess what? I love what I do. And not everyone gets to do it. But if you can at least create a hobby or some sort of outlet that your gift becomes that outlet, you will slowly start seeing your perspective, your life transition, your addiction start winning. Just everything that you used to hang on to will start transitioning towards this gift, because you're now doing what you love and doing what you were meant to do. But tapping into that is the key. And that's why your pain is the path to your greatness, because you get rid of that gunk, you're going to make room to find out what your gift is. But with all that crap in there, there's no chance in hell you're ever going to see your gift. You're too bogged down. So get rid of the gunk, start doing the work, follow these 8 steps of change, the resurrection plan. And by the end of it, you're going to get to a point, which is the last aspect of it. The last aspect of it, give me 1 second here, is going to be naturally the assess and adjust, then attempt to achieve, which is now your life is in a position where you like it to be.
Yeah.
Good. Now it's time to assess. Where are you at? Make some adjustments, because you're at a new place in your life now. What like the old investment phrase, past results do not equal future, or whatever the hell it is, right? And that's the way it works. Things will be a little different now. So now you have to make some adjustments, and then make another attempt at what it is you want to do next, and then execute it, and repeat.
No, and I think you mentioned something earlier on in the podcast about when you start to see life in 8K, because you got rid of all the crap, all the gunk is out of the way, and you're like, hey, look how pretty it is out here when all of the crap is out of the way. Hey, CJ, let people know where they can get the book. I know it's out today. Where is the best place to get it? I know you have autographed copies. You got hardcover, paperback. Where can people get the book?
Okay, boom, right here. The Resurrection Plan. This is a hardcover copy. If you want an autographed copy of the book, maybe with a little personal note, go to my website, www.carlos, C-A-R-L-O-S, Ricard, RICARD.com. You go to the website, pick paperback or pick hardcover. If not, you can always go to Amazon, look up the Resurrection Plant book, and then you should see a drop down which says CJ Ricard. Click on that. You can order it the same way, paperback, hardcover, or also an ebook, and also Target online. Soon my book will be with many distributors. So Barnes and Nobles, it's already at Target. So you'll be able to see my book a lot. And, just Google my name, of course, CJ Ricard, Resurrection Plant. You'll be able to find it. But my website will be the location that you're able to get the autographed copy of my book and have it delivered to your house, however that works, wherever you want it. So, yeah, that's what it is. But, hey, man, you are awesome. And thank you, man, for the time, bro.
No, thank you. Thank you not just for the time today, but for the time 3 years ago and the intermittent time there in the middle where you kept after this, and you and I stayed in contact loosely. We had you on the show, a couple of months ago, a little bit. We chatted about stuff, but to be able to go through all of the things that you went through in life, to be able to go through putting a book together, global pandemic.
Yeah.
We touched
literally
on
about to quit, by the way.
Literally shut the world down and the business down, but to keep after, to keep pursuing. That is, I think, another one of those caveats to why this is the starting point for you, for this book, for where it's going, for the people that's going to help, is because this is what you wanted to do. Your mind was in it. You loved doing it. You kept on doing it. You have the finished product, and this is where things grow exponentially. And I'm super proud to call you my friend. I'm super proud to be able to have you on the show anytime. Whatever you need from me, man, I'm in. Let's do epic things.
Same here, man. Same here. And to finish up, it's the promise. The promise. What's the promise? It's what you gained from being able to face those demons and confront that pain to greatness. You get the persistence, the patience, the resilience, the consistency, the courage, and the hope. And those values, those 6 little principles right there will get you through anything in life. But it's that experience and the process of having to confront that pain that creates that person to then be able to become who you want to become. Simple as that.
It's awesome, man. Carlos, I love you, my friend. Be well with yourself. My best to the family. Congratulations. Big day today. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and let's do awesome. Let's continue to do awesome things. How's that sound?
We will.
Awesome. Take care of yourself, my friend.
Peace out.
CJ Ricard. It is the Resurrection Plant, available now. Amazon, carlosricard.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can go and grab it right there. Get the autographed copy. Highly recommended. Great story. If you missed any of it, if you didn't get here till late, jump back on. It'll be posted on YouTube in its final prettiness coming up here shortly. Also on Facebook. And if you want to watch on Twitch, you can do that as well. To my guest today, CJ Ricard, thank you so much. Let's hit the links. Here's where you follow us on all of our social medias. We thank you for watching. Quick shout out to your C-Dubs, Malaysia, Joe, Jake, thanks for watching. Maria, Kim, thank you all for being a part of the show today. Have a great night. Take care of one another.